The mountain that had to. The mountain that had to move. Inside the engineering battle against nature. A BuildSphere original. Chapter 1: The Hook. In the heart of Central America, there is a wound in the earth 9 miles long, a scar so vast it can be seen from space. It was not carved by a river or a glacier or the slow patience of time. It was carved by men who refused to accept that a mountain could stand in the way of an ocean. This is the story of the Culebra Cut, the place where engineers didn't just build a canal, they fought a mountain, and after 25 years, 2 failed attempts, and thousands of lives lost, they won. Chapter 2: The Impossible Promise. At the end of the 19th century, the world's shipping industry faced a brutal problem. To sail from New York to San Francisco, a ship had to travel around the entire southern tip of South America, a journey of over 13,000 miles through some of the most violent seas on the planet. The solution seemed simple on paper: cut a channel through the narrow strip of land connecting North and South America and let the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet. But standing directly in that path was the Continental Divide, a spine of solid rock and mountain rising nearly 300 feet above sea level, running straight through the Isthmus of Panama. To build the canal, that mountain didn't just need a tunnel through it, it needed to be gone entirely. Chapter 3: The First Defeat. The first attempt came from France, led by the same engineer who had built the Suez Canal. He believed a sea-level canal, one with no locks, just a straight cut through the land, was the answer. His crews began digging into the ridge at a place called Culebra in 1881. Nature answered immediately. Tropical rain turned the excavation into a landslide zone. Rock and mud that had taken millions of years to settle came sliding back down almost as fast as it was removed. Malaria and yellow fever swept through the workforce, killing an estimated 22,000 workers. Within 8 years, the French project collapsed, bankrupt, and buried in its own rubble. The mountain had won the first round. Chapter 4: A Different Kind of War. When the United States took over the project in 1904, engineers made a critical decision. They would not fight the land on its own terms. Instead of a sea-level canal, they would raise ships above the mountain using a system of locks. But even this design still required cutting directly through the Culebra Ridge, now renamed the Culebra Cut. The plan called for removing over 100 million cubic yards of rock and earth, enough material to bury an entire city. Steam shovels, dynamite, and rail lines were brought in on a scale never before attempted in construction history. At the peak of the effort, more than 6,000 men worked the cut simultaneously, blasting and hauling around the clock. But the mountain wasn't finished fighting. Chapter 5: The Landslides. As engineers cut deeper into the ridge, they discovered a problem no one had anticipated. The rock itself was unstable. Certain layers, once exposed to air and rain, behaved less like solid stone and more like thick, shifting clay. The deeper the cut went, the more the surrounding slopes began to slide back into it. In one single collapse in 1907, a slide dumped nearly 500,000 cubic yards of material back into the very trench crews had spent months digging out. Some sections slid so persistently that engineers eventually had to abandon the idea of vertical walls entirely, instead carving the sides into wide, gentle slopes, sacrificing efficiency for stability. It was a brutal lesson. You cannot simply remove a mountain. You have to understand what's holding it together first and work with those forces, not against them. Chapter 6: Victory Measured in Years. The Culebra Cut took 7 years of continuous excavation to complete. When the final barrier of rock was blasted away in 1913 and water was allowed to flood the channel, the mountain that had stood for millions of years had been reduced to a navigable waterway wide enough for the largest ships of the era to pass through.